Alright, so we have a great fight here. What should be a really technical war in all facets of mixed martial arts. Both are very well rounded. It's TJ Dillashaw versus Cory Sandhagen. So, Cory Sandhagen, he's the much bigger guy. He's got a 5-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach advantage. You saw how Cory sized up against Frankie Edgar. So, Frankie Edgar and TJ Dillashaw are roughly the same size. Frankie's a little bit smaller, but they're roughly the same size, and you saw how much bigger Cory was when they faced off, and also when they were in the cage. Cory could never make flyweight, as TJ did when he versed Henry Cejudo. And speaking of that Henry Cejudo loss, that was 30 seconds. It only took 30 seconds. I think the weight cut played a large factor there, with TJ's ability to take the shots of Cejudo. I mean, Cejudo does crack, but I think the weight cut did play a big factor. And that's the only cage time TJ's had in the last 3 years. So before that fight, before the Cejudo fight, he was trying to adjust his body to flyweight and try to get down to the weight class. And then after that, he's obviously been suspended by USADA for EPO use. So he's off the juice now. So will his performance be a little bit different? Will his cardio suffer? I would imagine so. But he is, he does have a good work ethic, but I wouldn't be surprised if he comes in as a depleted version of himself. Cory Sandhagen, he's been super active whilst TJ has been, cutting down to flyweight and also suspended from USADA. He's fought 5 times since the last time TJ's fought, and he's been very successful in that run. I think he's 5-0. No, sorry. Well, 5-1. Well, 4-1 in that stretch, and 7-1 in the UFC. So he's been very successful in the UFC. Alright, so on the feet, both have the ability to fight in either stance. I'd say Cory Sandhagen switches his stance more frequently. He's constantly trying to give you different looks. Same with TJ, but TJ's more of an occasional stance switcher. Both are constantly feigning, both are trying to give you different looks all the time. For TJ Dillashaw, he's good at dragging fighters into his style of fight, where, he tries to make it a technical, tries to slow the pace down, make it technical, go technique for technique. The only fighters that didn't really oblige to this style of fight were Cejudo, who just came at him and just started putting hands on him, and Cruz, who utilized a lot of footwork and wouldn't just stand in front of TJ and go technique for technique. So that's what I think Sandhagen's going to look to do. He's mostly on the front foot. He's always, pretty much always on the front foot. He likes to take the front foot and then use his feints and his jab to keep the opponent on the back foot. He'll also just mix in bursts of offense to keep opponents steady on the back foot, just to kind of disrupt the rhythm a little bit. But ultimately, he's looking to push you back and employ his own game. And his own game, he mixes it up quite a bit. He's never really thrown the same strike twice or the same combination twice in a row. And he won't discriminate between limbs that he attacks. He'll go to the body, he'll go to the legs, he'll go to the head. Just pretty much equal work rate for those 3 levels of striking that he goes for. When he's in southpaw, he looks for the body kick against orthodox opponents. When he's in orthodox, he's looking for the low calf kick, and he just mixes it up a lot. For TJ Dillashaw, the majority of his stand-up offense, the majority of his stand-up offense takes place in the pocket. He's looking for that counter 2 in the pocket, which he caught Cody with multiple times, and put his lights out with it in the 2 fights those two had. And he's always trying to enter range at an unusual angle to get an angle for his head kick, but also get an angle for his counter 2 as well. He will switch stance to close distance to assist him in closing that distance, and then he'll go for a body kick from there or a head kick. And he does have good strike and defense in the pocket. So does Sandhagen. He has good vision in the pocket. He can keep the hands low in the pocket, but he does have good vision. But generally, Sandhagen doesn't love fighting in the pocket. He's more of a outside perimeter type of fighter. So yeah, I think the low calf kick will be a big weapon for Sandhagen, especially when they're orthodox and orthodox. TJ has that wide base. He's heavy on the lead leg. He's pretty much crouching at times. He has very low base on the feet, especially when he's in orthodox. So he has that potential to eat leg kicks at full brunt, so I think that could be a good weapon here. And also, potential to catch TJ is when he throws those naked kicks, because he throws a lot of naked kicks, and that can lead to reactive takedowns or just striking opportunities for his opponent. And we saw Dominic Cruz take advantage of the naked kicks when he grounded TJ, I think for like 4 takedowns in their fight. One thing Sandhagen does is that when you do push him back, he will back up in a straight line. So if TJ was going to mix in his grappling here, I think he would have success after he pushes him back with his stand-up. So in the grappling for these two, TJ likes to switch stance as he does on the feet, but this time, or at times, he'll mix it in and change levels for a blast double. So it's kind of hidden because normally when he's switching stance, he's looking for that high kick or the body kick, but he will change levels and go for a blast double, which can catch opponents off guard. And he does have a nice reactive double as well, which I believe he could catch Sandhagen with, because Sandhagen is always coming forward. But yeah, Sandhagen does have a nice Kimura trap as a takedown defense. He's pretty good at reversing position, ending up on top. He will initiate a scramble to defend a takedown. He doesn't have the best takedown defense, like stat-wise, like on paper, but he's very good at initiating a scramble to kind of get his way out of it. But, in those scrambles, he will give his back in most scrambles, which is how Aljamain Sterling caught him. And on the other hand, TJ, if you do get him down, he's very hard to hold down. He's got good scrambles as well. And if TJ does get on top in the scramble or after he goes for one of his takedowns, he doesn't have the greatest top control, leaves a lot of space, often postures up and looks for ground and pound without securing like a dominant position or just decent top control before unloading. So how these guys win fights. So for TJ Dillashaw, he has good fight IQ, ability to adapt mid-fight, and he is a competitor. He's always looking for the win. You can never count him out. He's very competitive. He's got killer instinct as well if he does hurt you. He's got good takedown defense, he's got good cardio and good volume. We'll see how that goes after the USADA suspension, but I still believe he'll be able to push a decent pace. For Cory Sandhagen, he also has good cardio, he has good footwork and good rage control. High fight IQ as well, makes reads very quickly, as we saw in the Frankie Edgar fight. And his chin looks solid, he looks fairly durable in general. His chin looks pretty good. And he has good striking defense as is, though. He rolls with a lot of the shots, brings the shoulder up on like a lot of top, taller fighters who just simply lean back with their chin in the air. He actually will bring the shoulder up. I'm talking about fighters like James Vick and Stefan Struve and Luis Pena, who just lean back instead of bringing the shoulder up. Cory Sandhagen will actually bring the shoulder up. Alright, so how these guys lose fights, gonna have to nitpick here, both are very good. For TJ Dillashaw, it's fighters with good movement. So Dominic Cruz really frustrated him a little bit with the movement. TJ's a fantastic fighter. He's very well-rounded. There's very few holes in his game, so I had to really nitpick here. But if I had to pick one thing, it'd be fighters with good movement. And that's what Sandhagen is. For Sandhagen, it's the grappling tendencies. Mostly I'm referring to him giving his back in pretty much every scramble. That's, I think, where he gets in trouble a lot. But other than that, he's very well-rounded as well. Past the victory for these two. For, TJ Dillashaw. Look to throw the leg kicks. Like, TJ generally throws the leg kicks to the upper thigh or the upper knee area. I think you should really try and go to the low calf against Sandhagen. That would really slow the movement of Sandhagen. But generally, he does go for the thigh, which, hurts, it slaps, but no fighter is ever going to change their game plan or stop their movement by, or these days anyway. They're not going to stop, they're not going to change their game plan after a few kicks to the thigh. But if you go to the low calf, it can really debilitate somebody. Mix in the wrestling as well. Try and get him moving backwards and then look for your takedowns there. For Cory Sandhagen, look to throw some low calf kicks as well. TJ has been kind of out on the sidelines in this rapid rise of the low calf kick era, so look to introduce him to that and really target that lead leg when he has that wide base in orthodox versus orthodox. But yeah, so when TJ's in orthodox, his head is there to be jabbed in that side stance. He doesn't move his head too much, and he didn't seem to have the fastest reaction times against Cruz. Cruz would just close distance, jab, and then back on his bike, pretty much, and that was pretty much the whole fight, and that was the main weapon of Cruz, I think, was the jab. So I think Cory can do that as well. He is longer than Cruz, so yeah, you can use that link with the jab there. So yeah, look to punish TJ when he does close distance, because he will be the one trying to close distance, get in the pocket to land his offense. So, you know, look for knees, counter twos in the pocket, just to keep him at the end of your punches, and, you know, make sure he isn't going to be able to get comfortable in the pocket, because you don't want him to get comfortable in the pocket, because that's where you can win the fight. Alright, so how I see the fight playing out as a whole. Alright, so I'm super high on Sandhagen. I did bet Aljamain Sterling in their fight at UFC 250, but, you know, now I believe that Sandhagen wins more times than not when those two fight. I think Aljo capitalized perfectly on one of the few chinks in Sandhagen's armor. I don't think he'll be able to do that again too many times out of 10. And yeah, just the Jan and the Sterling fight really confirmed that for me. I think Jan and Sandhagen are definitely the top two fighters in the division right now. But yeah, the smaller cage should favour Sandhagen with his pressure game, whereas TJ likes to have a lot of room to maneuver, and, you know, set up kicks on the back foot. It could help TJ if he does go with the wrestling route, because the cage will be closed, so he doesn't have to drive too far. But yeah, TJ hasn't used a wrestling heavy game plan since John Lineker, which was like 5 years ago. I think the takedowns that he was hitting on Lineker won't be available again, like on Sandhagen, just because Cory's footwork is just too elusive, unpredictable with his movement. He's always switching stance, so it's hard to hit those driving takedowns on him, because he's always changing the angle of his hips, but also he's stepping off to the side when he's forward pressuring. He's not just going to be coming straight forward like a John Lineker was in a linear fashion. Cory's takedown defense is worrying, but, you know, his scrambles are good. But if you can control that initial scramble like Aljamain Sterling did, I think it's much easier to control him after that. He's a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but I think on the mat is where opponents will find more success against Sandhagen than on the feet. Probably the most similar fight that you can get to this would be TJ Dillashaw versus Dominic Cruz. TJ had issues with Dom's footwork, his upper body movement, getting TJ to hit air quite often. You know, TJ he was more flat-footed in that one, and generally he does like to fight pretty flat-footed and go technique for technique, just kind of stand in front of you, have people stand in front of him, and then go technique for technique. You know, I love Dominic Cruz, but I think Sandhagen would really dominate Dominic Cruz, in my opinion. And yeah, most of TJ's offense is coming in the pocket, but Sandhagen, he has really good vision in the pocket. He's usually able to keep the fight at distance anyway. He doesn't spend a lot of time in the pocket, but even if he does, I don't believe he'll be in too much trouble. Even, you know, side note, before Cory was in the UFC, there's a video of TJ saying, when TJ was the champ, so there's a video of TJ saying earnestly how Cory was always fucking him up in sparring. And if that was happening back then, I don't know what's happening now, because every time we see Cory Sandhagen, he's improving every single fight. And honestly, I just think Sandhagen is just a much more evolved version of TJ Dillashaw. He obviously took pieces of Dillashaw's game and made him his own, and really built on that, I believe. So I do think Cory Sandhagen is going to win. I think he'll dominate in this fight. I think it's going to be either accumulation TKO or maybe even a doctor stoppage due to just damage, broken orbital, that kind of stuff. So yeah, as you can tell, I am picking Sandhagen, and we'll have a look at the betting lines. Alrighty, so if you guys could like the video, it really helps out with the algorithm, pushes the channel a little bit more, which helps me immeasurably. So if you could do that, that'd be awesome. Alright, so prediction is Sandgren. Fucking watching too much tennis. Sandhagen by TKO in round 3 or 4. So I think he wins around 70% of the time. I think reasons mentioned above. I already talked about that, so I won't get into it. I'm looking to bet Sandhagen at anything above $1.55 or minus 185. Probably want around 1-3 units. If I can get him around $1.70 or minus 145, I'd bet him 2 to 5 units. So yeah, I'm pretty confident Sandhagen wins here and does it in quite impressive fashion.